Elemento thought that the losing his powers was the worst thing that could happen. He was wrong until he met Aaina. She was no longer just his teammate. She was standing in hundreds of people, bowing to her, crying in front of her. But the real question was not why they were worshipping her, but the question was, what did Aaina do to make them believe that she is divine? So in last episode you saw the Elemento comes out of a portal and he sees an ancient settlement. And in between that ancient settlement, Aaina was standing. Her long dark hair was slightly floating in the air. Hundreds of prehistoric humans were kneeling to her. Some were even afraid of looking into her eyes. Elemento landed on a cliff, watching everything silently, and he whispered, Aaina, what happened to you? And at the exact moment Aaina turned, her purple eyes locked onto the Elemento. And for that second, crowd went silent, and Aaina smiled. But it was not the playful smile that she had. It was controlled. It was colder. It was more powerful. Like as she was knew that he was coming. After that, Elemento descended to the settlement. The moment his feet touched the ground, everyone panicked. Some ran backwards, some picked up the stones, some even hid behind their huts. They have never seen another being like her. Aaina rose her hand and everyone froze. Not physically, mentally. Everyone calmed down. Their fear stopped, their breathing became slowed, their eyes became calm. Elemento noticed it and said, he controlled them. Aaina said, no, I calmed them. Elemento said, no, that's not the same thing. Aina's expression hardened. You have no idea what I have found here. Elemento looked around. Primitive huts, stone tools, fire pits, wall symbols, fearful humans, and then looked back to Aaina and said, they worship you. Aaina said, they survive because of me. Aaina turns toward the crowd and said,
when I came here, they were hiding from the nights. They were afraid of the storms. They were afraid of animals. They were even afraid of each other.
She raised her hand and a purple memory floated into the air. Elemento saw what Aaina had seen. Humans running from the predators. Families fighting over food. Lightning burning the forests. A tribe almost dying from the fear. Aaina continued.
I tried to stay hidden, but every night their thoughts screamed into my mind. Their fear, their hunger, their pain. I could feel every mind screaming at once, so I helped them.
Elemento watched her memory. Aaina showing symbols through mental images. Aaina teaching them how to communicate with each other, how to trust each other. And slowly, humans stopped seeing her as a stranger. They trusted them and started seeing them something beyond humanity. A miracle, a goddess. Elemento stepped closer. You have helped them without interfering. Aaina turned sharply. And what should I have done? Elemento said, you have changed the natural path. Aina's voice became sharper. You did the same, Elemento. Aaina looked into his eyes.
You think I don't know? When you reconnected to Earth, I felt that. Your nanoparticles entered the living chain. You changed everything.
Elemento stayed silent. Aaina continued. You're judging me from changing their path? You have changed the humanity itself. You have created them, Elemento. Those words hit him hard. The notification from his system echoed his mind. DNA alteration completed. Humanity seed event initiated. Humanity is now on Earth. Elemento looked away and for the first time, he had no answer. Aaina stepped closer and said, we are not visitors anymore, Elemento. We are the part of history. Elemento opened his time ring. A golden hologram popped into the air and different time points floated into the air. Aaina looked at it. You find others? Elemento nodded. Yes. At the time of jump, the ring split. Now we are scattered throughout the time in the history. Aaina looked at the hologram. Everyone's signal was glowing at the different point of time. Aaina's expressions softened. They're alone, Elemento said. So were we. For a moment, the crowd became silent. Their goddess is not alone anymore. Someone from her world had returned. Elemento noticed something, that Aina's hands were shaking. He asked, "Are you afraid?" Aina slowly said, "Here, I mattered." Elemento replied that you mattered before. Aina said, "No, before I was just a mind hero who supported the team from back, who held portals, and the one who protected others from the back. Here, my thoughts became their language, my fear became their warnings, my power became their faith. I became the reason they stopped hiding." Elemento's voice softened. "Aina, this is not faith. This is dependence." Aina looked at the humans again. One child stepped forward. He held a stone carved with the symbol of I. Aina knelt. He placed that stone on the Aina's palm. Aina's eyes filled with the emotion. "They are not just worshipping me, they trust me." Elemento looked at the child, then at Aina, and he understood that it was not about ego. It was loneliness. She was lost in time, but these people gave her a purpose. Elemento said, "If you come with me, what will happen?" Aina said, "They'll forget me." Elemento is confused. Aina continued, "I planted stories into their minds, not commands, stories, symbols, dreams, lessons. When I leave, they remember the lessons, but not the fear." Elemento asked, "And what will they call you?" And I said, "Maybe a myth, maybe a goddess, maybe nothing." Elemento said, "And are you okay with that?" Aina looked at him. "And that's what we are becoming, not rulers, not heroes, myths." And that line stayed in the air because both of them knew every time they were moving through the history, there was something left. A story, symbol, a spark. Aina walked to the crowd. She raised her hand and a purple energy spread through the settlement. Not controlling, not forcing, just calming. The crowd slowly gathered around her. Aina spoke in the language that they could barely understand, but her mind carried the meaning to them. "Do not fear the dark, the fire will guide you. Do not fear each other, the trust will protect you. Do not worship the power, use your wisdom." The people lowered their heads. Some cried, and that child with the eye symbol stepped forward again. Aina knelt and placed her hand on that child's forehead. A purple glow entered that symbol. The first memory is planted. Elemento watched it all silently. Aina turned and said, "I'm ready." Elemento held out its repaired typing. Aina held its broken one. The nanoparticles flowed into the Aina's ring and repaired it. Then both rings started glowing, gold and purple. The lights mixed together. The time stream reacted. The sky above them twisted. The cloud formed a spiral. The crowd looked up in the fear. Aina whispered into their mind, "Do not be afraid." Elemento said, "The nearest signal is Pavati and Anil. They are further in the future." Aina said, "How far?" Elemento said, "Far enough for humans to become stop surviving and start building." Aina said, "Civilizations?" Elemento nodded, "But the time is still unstable. If we make another jump, maybe not land at the same time as we wanted." Aina looked at the portal forming above them and said, "Then we aim better this time." They both rose her hand, and the golden and purple energy entered into the rings. The portal opened. Aina looked back at one last time, the ancient humans who were watching their goddess sleep. Then she stepped towards the Elemento, and together they entered the time. Inside the time stream, Aina and Elemento moved together. Golden and purple energy wrapped around them. They saw the flashes of human history. Hunter forming groups, the fire spreader tribe to tribe, symbols painted on the cave walls, children's learning from the elders, the first shelters became villages. Aina watched all that silently, and Elemento said, "Your lesson survived." Aina replied, "So did your mistake." Elemento said, "What mistake?" Aina pointed ahead in the time. They saw the human DNA glowing faintly with the golden patterns. Elemento's nanocode hidden into the evolution. Aina said, "You just didn't reconnect it to the earth. You left a door inside the humanity." Elemento said, "What door?" Before Aina could answer, the time stream cracked. A portal opened. A bright blue and yellow signal appeared in front of them. Pavati and Anil, they both together. Elemento said, "There." They flew toward the signal. The portal opened and they fell into the future. Elemento and Aaina landed on a hill. Not flying cars, not big towers, no futuristic Earth. But the humans stopped surviving. They were building civilizations. Mud houses, wooden fences, fields, water channels, smoke rising from the cooking fires. Humans were not just surviving anymore. They were organizing, building, learning. Aina said, they're forming civilizations. Elemento looked at the middle of the settlement and he saw two familiar figures stood among them, Anil and Pavati. Pavati stood near a river, channeling the water to the fields. Anil stood in the open fields, teaching that how wind can help separating grains. And the humans watched them carefully, learning, repeating, building, not worshipping like Aina's people did. Elemento said, they're teaching them, Aina said, farming. Elemento thought he was fixing the time, but with every jump, he was creating something big. And now, something from beyond time has started watching them.